need a high-end designer or a lot of money to get a luxe look. Be your own interior designer.
This is Affordable Interior Design, the podcast.
Here's your host, Betsy Helmuth.
Jessica's writing me and she says, "Hi, Betsy. Thanks for such an educational and fantastic podcast. I have learned so much from listening to you and have already made several changes to my house. My question is how to create a kid zone in our living room. We live in Scotland. Houses here are much smaller. Our house is a 1980s house, seriously lacking character. The ceilings are not high. We don't love it, but we plan to stay here for a few more months as it's close to good schools and it's in a nice area. Our children are only 2 and 3 years old. Life has been a bit busy, as you can imagine. We've been living here for 2.5 years, but we've only recently had a bit of headspace to think about designing our house. The living room is a work in progress. It opens up to the kitchen dining room. It's at the back of the house and looks out to the garden. Well, if you can't see the garden, that's it with the wood burner in the middle and the wall partially blocking the view. The garden is also at a lower level than the house, so you can only really see trees when you're sitting on the couch. We have started working on our living room and we hope to achieve a relaxing Scandi style. We will eventually be buying a sectional to go where the 2 couches are now, and we plan to incorporate lots of plants and textures by using pillows and throws. The carpet is staying. Carpets are very common here. I'm also on the lookout for some art. This is the only living room in our house and it's shared by both kids and adults. I want to celebrate that and I want the kids to feel like it's their space as much as it is ours. We're thinking of creating a children's zone on the right side of the wood burner. So my question is, how do I break up that long white wall and create a kid zone? Shall I paint that section of the wall? It's about 80 inches wide. I love that you used inches. Thank you, Jessica. Or should I make it a different color, use wallpaper? Would it look weird if only part of the wall is painted? My other thought is to use wooden slats on the wall. So that would be the children's zone. See pictures of what I had in mind attached. But I'm not sure if that would look nice. We don't need extra storage, so I'm just looking for ideas as to how we can create that zone for them without extra furniture. Advice would be greatly appreciated. Thanks again for the amazing podcast. Well, thanks for writing in, Jessica. It's my pleasure. Okay, so you've sent some pictures here. And I'm trying to get a sense of the room, which I can, but not getting a ton of clarity. Okay, so the room doesn't appear to be all that big. And I see that you've tried to separate this room, which is probably, I don't know, I'm going to eyeball this. Hold on. 12 feet wide by 16 feet long. I'm just going to say, hold on, let me go back. Yeah. Just to give people at home an idea of what we're working with. It appears to have that wood burning fireplace on the far side of the room with a circular mirror over top and a thin mantle. The windows are quite square, probably 4 feet by 4 feet, maybe 5 feet by 5 feet, flanking the wood burning stove. And then you have carved out this sort of little corner for the kids, but it's quite small with these 2 kind of IKEA kids chairs as well as a play table. Now, my situation here is that this room is not large. It's not large. And the idea that you would create a separate kid zone when the couch itself takes up so much room in this space as well as the TV, for me, just feels like you're trying to break up something that's small into already smaller parts, which I think is going to look cramped, cluttered, and disjointed. Now, I do agree that that big wall behind the sofa that's opposite the TV does look blank, but trying to create a visual separation with something like wood slats or even 3 feet of a different painted color or something like that is just going to look horrible. Now, because the carpeting is very low pile, you could always layer another rug under the kid zone. But the problem for me is this kid zone is very small. You've basically got it wedged in the corner. I would not try and make the space have a separate zone. I would try and incorporate the kid zone more with the adult zone. I like the idea of the kids' chairs being tucked away. I wonder if you could get like a coffee table that could double as the kids' play table so that they could play on the coffee table, color on the coffee table, and then you could have a coffee table in this small room without needing the play table. I'm wondering if there's a way, if you really did want to have a kids' corner, you've got these French doors opposite the couch wall. Oh, I have an idea. Okay, I have an idea. Now, I've only got like one vantage point of this room. Typically, when you're sending me pictures, guys, I would love it if you would send me a picture from each corner of the room. So I have sort of this full 360. In this case, have you ever considered moving the couch to the wall where the TV is now that shares the wall with the French doors? So that way, the smaller wall, not the long white wall, but the smaller wall has the couch. I don't know if this would work because I can't see the other vantage points. But then moving the TV on the opposite wall, because then you'd have room for a separate kids zone. I'm just worried that you're trying to carve out multiple zones in a room that's potentially too small for that, or that you may not have the right layout at all if you do want to achieve those two zones. Bottom line, Jessica, I may not have enough pictures to answer your question, but what I can tell you is what not to do. Do not architecturally break up that wall with shiplap or any other wood treatment so that it feels like a different part of the space, because it's never going to feel like a different part of the space. It's all one room and it's not a big room. And you may want to visually separate the spaces by layering a rug on top of the carpeting because it's low pile. And that would help you to define the living zone. And then the kids zone could kind of be its own thing. I need more pictures to really get into it. And I hate saying that because I want to give you lots of good advice. But here, my only advice is maybe this isn't the room for a kid zone. A big thank you to Aton and the Embassy who wrote our theme song. A shout out to Catherine Heller who owns the podcast shop and is our editor extraordinaire. We also want to thank Ginny Sunasan and her team at the Savvy Podcast Agency for their help with our social, our YouTube channel, and so much more. We also want to thank Uploft, which is our parent company who supports this podcast. And lastly, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and for all your support.